This interview is sponsored by America's Card Room, an online gaming site that supports over 60 different cryptocurrencies. You can find out everything you need to know and start gaming on America's Card Room today by visiting youmeandbtc.com/poker. And when you create an account with America's Card Room, you can look forward to a 100% bonus on your initial deposit. Start playing with America's Card Room today by visiting youmeandbtc.com/poker. Welcome to another recorded episode of You, Me, and BTC, the world's most entertaining Bitcoin podcast. On this episode, we have a very special guest. He's part of the elite cadre of K followers on Twitter with tens of thousands of followers and a trader. As you know, Dan and Tim and I are pretty hardcore Bitcoin maximalists, you might say. We definitely don't trade, but we have the very special opportunity of talking with an experienced trader about trading coins, and we'll jump into coin offerings a little bit later. But thanks so much for joining us, Donnie. He's on Twitter at Donnie Crypto. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Zach. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I got to lead off by asking if you're the Don, do you have a wolf or where's your wolf at?
Wolf of Poloniacs and I are friends, but
I'm
a Lone Ranger, man. I'm a Lone Ranger.
Okay, I got it. So everyone sort of has their own unique story with how they got involved in this space, whether it's first through Bitcoin or Ethereum or just creating a Twitter account, I guess. How'd you first get involved, and what was one of the first coins, maybe including Bitcoin or besides Bitcoin, that you traded?
Yeah, so I got a little bit of Bitcoin from a buddy in college in 2013 as a joke. Didn't really think too much of it. I really started getting heavily into it 2016. Poker site by the name of America's Card Room started accepting Bitcoin. So I wanted to start playing poker again. I finally found out that online poker exists in the States. So I got into that. And then around December 2016, I was really, really unhappy with my job. So I decided that I wanted to quit and try this stuff full time. At first, I had really planned on playing poker as well to supplement my income, but I put a bunch of money in Ethereum when it was super low, got really lucky that it ran up, and then just everything kind of snowballed from there.
Damn. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of funny you mentioned America's Card Room because we love them. They actually sponsor us pretty regularly for these episodes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And I was curious, you mentioned your job. So some people sort of come in like Parabolic Trav on Twitter and Luke Martin and these guys, they sort of come in from finance backgrounds, and other people sort of teach it to themselves and have a previous career totally unrelated to trading or finance or anything. Is that latter one sort of your story, or did you have trading or financial experience before you came into this whole space?
So I worked at a startup by the name of Fundera that provided access to capital for small businesses. But as far as doing any sort of trading background explicitly, not at all. I think having a really strong fundamental background in poker kind of helps me out as well, doing analysis and things like that. But yeah, no, I came in January and just taught myself pretty much everything.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. That's the way to do it, I guess. So along the way, teaching yourself, I'm sure everyone who's even, no matter how big or small an amount you trade or how frequently you trade, everyone loses money at some point. But you learn the most. There's plenty of financial luminaries who say you learn the most by losing money, even though Warren Buffett's rule number one is don't lose money. Is there sort of one or maybe a string of trades that is sort of seared into your mind that you're all right, I'm never fucking doing that again, or just sort of, I don't know, prepared you for being a more effective trader?
Yeah, although it worked out, I probably should not have put 60% of my money at the time when I quit my job into Ethereum. That was probably a very dumb decision. I got lucky and ran super well and it worked out, but had I known what I know now, I would have never done that, but I also would have never made the money that I did. So I guess it's kind of a double-edged sword. As you get into this, you start to realize that you should really be taking more of a venture capital approach where you look at a whole bunch of different projects because you don't really know which ones are going to work out. You can guess, but you never really know. So I tend to now put like 1% of my money or so in each position that I take, and that lets you sleep easy at night knowing you're not overexposed in any one area.
Sure, sure, of course. And that sort of dovetails into one of the questions that some of our newer listeners asked. So I crowdsourced a few questions from you all, and we want to get the Don's opinion on them. With so many thousands of ICOs and other coins that didn't come through offerings, a few listeners are wanting to know how do you find a coin, or how do you monitor it all? Like, do you have a portfolio of your few favorites that you cycle through, or do you just sort of, is it like a needle in a haystack sort of laborious process, or what's your system sort of in general for sifting through all these coins and tokens and things?
Absolutely, yeah. So I work a little bit differently than most of the people that you'll see on Twitter. I don't use technical analysis or anything like that. I simply view it similar to how you would view a low cap equities
Okay.
market, where you have these things that are very, very low float. So what that means for people that may not be too familiar with equities or trading or anything like that, float is basically the concept of the outstanding shares. So all the shares that are available for purchase, basically. And
Right.
I look for coins that have very large accumulations amongst a few wallets, and then have a piece of news, whether it's relevant or not, to sort of drive up the price. So a good example of this is, if you guys remember when Einsteinium announced that they were hard forking and burning a ton of coins, that was something that made the price jump amazingly. It went up like 2,000% in the span of a couple of weeks or something like that. And that's one of the things that we'd look at. Now, as far as the way I gather that information, I had built my own product called Moonshot Crypto. And what it does is essentially scans Twitter, Medium, Telegram, any news source that you'd ever want, and aggregates a list of the most important information to trade off of each day. So my morning routine is I go through the information the night before, see what might be relevant, and see what might cause something to pump.
I see, I see. That makes sense. You said Moonshot Crypto. How can our listeners, is there social media to follow that, or what's the URL for Moonshot?
Yeah, so it's really simple. It's just moonshotcrypto.com. If you're interested, you can check it out. It's 0.15 BTC per year. And that also includes a community of venture capitalists, cryptocurrency traders, a whole bunch of different folks that are involved in the space and utilize the product every day.
True, true. Okay. I appreciate that. I sort of want to get your opinion, because from time to time, some of the, like, sort of some of the members of like the K cadre on Twitter, the bigwigs, have differing opinions on sort of paid groups and services and that sort of thing. And some of them are like, fuck it, we're all one big family, I'll give it all out for free. Other people are like, no, this is my work. If you want to learn, you're going to pay for it. What's your take on paid groups? Because that is another question. Some people asked, is it how do I know which paid group is the best for learning? Is it a waste of time and money? What's your take on paid services for learning versus just like following a bunch of people on Twitter, or both, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain people that are going to give out things for free. I mean, I get probably 20 to 50 direct messages a day. I'm simply not going to take the time. It doesn't make sense for me. My time is very valuable. So I run the paid group. If you want access to me whenever you want, you have to pay for that information. I don't spend 12 hours a day making this my full-time job to give things away for free. So, and some people are
Yeah,
going to have
absolutely.
some people are going to have a problem with that. That's totally fine. I would be very, very surprised if some of those people were the most profitable traders, simply because when your time is that valuable, you don't want to be wasting it, and you don't want to be giving it away for free.
Sure, sure. That totally makes sense. Shifting to some questions from some of our older listeners, so this was sort of expressed in a few different ways. I sort of repackaged it into what your general sense or vibe of crypto Twitter, sort of the whole crypto space is today, right now, sort of halfway through January 2018 versus, I mean, you mentioned you got some Bitcoin from a friend back in 2013 and then sort of got later involved in 15 and 16. Like, compared to however involved you were in 13 and then in 14, 15, or 16, compared to now, sort of, what do you see as the same? What do you see as changed? What's your read on the whole situation?
I think you have a very large psychological component at play, especially with the new folks coming in. I mean, if you look at the price jumps in coins that are priced less than like 10 cents, they've all increased by like over 100% on average. And if you
Hmm.
look at some of the larger unit cost coins like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that, or Monero, Zcash, they've all increased considerably lower relative to US dollars, you know, without even considering what the market capitalization of any of these coins are. So I think one of the reasons why something like a Ripple or a Tron pumps so high is there's this psychological effect of people that they see that they can buy like, 100,000 of something, and they see the price, they see Bitcoin. Oh, I can only buy 0.1 Bitcoin. That I'm never going to get rich off that. But if I own 100,000 of something without even considering what the market capitalization or the token amount is, they're just like automatically thinking, oh, wow, I can get rich off this. So I think that's one major difference that
Okay.
in the past, when you had more folks that are technically inclined, they would simply disregard these projects. So it's made me adjust my trading strategy a little bit more
Hmm.
and look at something that I might consider to be a scam, but the psychology of most people entering the market, they perceive it as this great thing because crypto is this hot space. Oh, I can buy 200,000 Tron at a penny each. Why would I not do that? It might go to $5.
Yeah, no, I mean, that totally makes sense. And anyone who spends, I mean, even a few minutes on Twitter sees all these relatively new accounts shilling coins just on the rather unjustified opinion that, well, they could go to the moon, or they could go to $100,000 or $1 billion market cap or something. Maybe even Doge has triggered even more of that recently. It's a little wild out there. And one question from an older listener, he asked, this is sort of still related to crypto Twitter in the space. What is your biggest pet peeve about crypto Twitter? You mentioned you get like 10 or 20 direct messages a day. I mean, maybe that's it. I don't know. But what's your biggest pet peeve about new, old users, all of them combined? Or what's the thing that sort of grinds your gears?
People that just message you asking about some obscure coin that you've never heard of. Yeah, man.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
If you provide me with an opinion on a project and like some logic as to why you think it might go up, like I can then assess that and like give you my opinion. But if you just ask me like when is Nebulous going to be like $120 a coin, like I don't know, man. No one is no one
Yeah.
is psychic. You can draw, if you do TA, you can draw some lines on a chart that like provide you with scenarios that can happen or that you believe can happen. But truthfully, no one really knows. No one really knows when things are going to go up or down. You just use all the information available to you to make as many good decisions as possible.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Specific to asking about coins, as you might expect, we had a plethora of new listeners asking about specific coins. Some of them were Tron, Redcoin, a whole bunch of them.
Shitcoin. Okay.
Yeah. I'm curious to know if I sort of took all of that and told them I'm not going to ask you about specific coins, but I am curious to know if you sort of have two lists of top 5 most promising coins that you're excited about, if you want to disclose that, or which may be easier to disclose, sort of the shittiest 5 coins that if you're in, get out immediately, that sort of thing. Do you have like those sorts of lists, or which coins would be in them if you do?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna speak on specific coins either way, but I will say that if you're looking at specific industries, you want to look at decentralized exchanges, you want to look at healthcare, you want to look at anything involving supply chain. So things like, and I'll give a couple examples actually. And full disclosure, anything that I mention, I am definitely invested in, and you can definitely consider this a shill. So
Okay.
decentralized exchanges, 0x and AirSwap. 0x is backed by pretty much everyone. It's being shilled constantly on Twitter for good reason. It's an amazing product. And AirSwap is backed by Mike Novogratz. And
Oh.
I'm essentially betting that Mike Novogratz, when he begins his merchant bank for crypto, will be utilizing AirSwap to provide liquidity for his bank. So those are 2 really great projects I'm looking at. As far as on the medical side, I recently invested in Medical Chain, the Medical Chain ICO. I think that project's going to do super well. They're partnered up with NHS and the Linux Foundation, as well as getting some pilots started in Asia. And lastly, very, very interested in a project called Exum Chain. So it's going to be a supply chain project. There's rumors floating around in some circles I'm in that they're partnering with Foxconn. So
Hmm.
if you're not familiar with Foxconn, they basically make all the iPhones in the world. and they're a very large Chinese manufacturer. So when you're a supply chain blockchain company and you're partnering with Foxconn, you're probably going to do some cool things. So those are a few projects that I'm really, really excited about.
Cool. All right, I appreciate that. You've mentioned ICOs a couple times, and two of the as far as volume wise, I guess two of the questions we got most frequently were about ICOs generally, a whole bunch of forms of questions, and taxes. Obviously, nothing on this show should be construed as any form of tax advice, but I know Bully and a couple other people on Twitter have tweeted about how many questions they get about taxes every day, and I'm sure you're no exception. I'm not asking for tax advice. I'm asking for what's it like out there? Are people just freaking out, or are people saying, fuck the Fed, I'm not paying taxes, or like what? It seems like a nightmare out there. What's going on?
Yeah, I think there's a mix of opinions. I think you have some people that are just never paying, which I think is silly. I mean,
yeah.
If you've cashed out fiat through Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, whatever, they have your information and you should pay your taxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're just holding, whatever, don't report it. But if you've cashed out the fiat, definitely pay your taxes. I certainly plan to pay my taxes, because I think, even if you file wrong or you file incorrectly in the eyes of the government, as long as you make a good faith effort, I know this applies to the States, I think, you'll end up being okay, or they'll work out some sort of deal with you where you won't be severely penalized.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, Coin Center is constantly putting out more articles and stuff about certain ambiguities within the IRS guidances and all that sort of thing. So it's definitely not as clear and cut and dry as far as filing your returns and trades and all that sort of thing as it could be. But like you said, for everyone out there who asked about taxes, a good faith effort is probably your top priority. Thumbtack can hook you up with plenty of CPAs who can help you file and that sort of thing. So good faith effort is top priority. I want to ask about ICOs, though. I mean, on this show, we've talked about ICOs before a few times, some in particular, and then them sort of as a general category of investment opportunities. And me personally, I've always been very reluctant to invest in them because, as I see it, the incentives are all misaligned for a team that has minimal to no product and minimal to no experience and an assload of money on the front end could just disappear. And obviously some people get really rich, like Dragon Train, for example, is probably the most recent example of something that's just gone parabolic. And then certain people like bigwig Bitcoin figures like Andreas, he says, well, 99.9% of ICOs are shit right now. And you mentioned that maybe something being a scam is sort of an advantage given the psychology of the market right now rather than a disadvantage. But given that was a lot, given all of that, what would you say to people who say, no, fuck ICOs, I can't because I'd rather just buy a coin on an exchange rather than have some team run away with my money? Or maybe they say it could go to the moon. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I don't invest so I've been very fortunate to get quite a few contacts in Hong Kong and Singapore and China. So anything that I do is, as far as ICOs, I've received personal vouchers that the team is legit, that they're going to work to build a product, that it's not a scam. And I think one of the disadvantages most folks have, that if you're not that connected, you can be very, it can be very hit or miss with what you invest in. I think you just got to be careful out there. I mean, if you completely dismiss ICOs, you're certainly leaving a lot of money on the table.
Sure.
I'm going all in on ICOs in 2018. I think the market is primed. I think, and I'm also aligned in that I have 70% of my portfolio in ETH right now. So I think that we are primed to get a lot of ICOs in 2018. And I think a lot of them are going to pump, whether it's justified or not. I don't really care because I'll be buying into pre-sales. And, if it goes 5x versus US dollars or 3 to 4x versus ETH, I will consider that a win all day.
Yeah, fair enough. So pardon my ignorance, I think I have this right. There is sort of an increasing number of ICOs being launched on Neo chain too. Is that correct? Are you interested in those at all? You mentioned you have a pretty significant stake in Ether, but are you?
Yeah, definitely interested in Neo. I mean, I think as a general rule of thumb, if there is hype in Asia about it, and there is certainly a lot of hype about Neo in Asia, you want to be in. Regardless whether the project has merit or not, like if you see BitHum and you see that it's constantly ahead in price versus every other exchange, I mean, that should tell you something. And where do you think all the Chinese money is going to now that you can't, now that it's tough to buy versus Chinese yuan in China? I mean, it's all going to Korea. So yeah, I mean, I really just think you need to be thinking less about the fundamentals of the project and more thinking about the psychology of the market and what will everyone else do versus what actually makes the most fundamental sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I guess we're sort of hitting the mark on time here, getting close to it. I'm curious, though, sort of end on this note. When you trade, and when we were talking about taxes, we mentioned exchanging tokens and coins for fiat and that sort of thing. But plenty of traders tweet about the merits of just trading against Bitcoin and keeping it all in crypto. And I'm curious if that sort of, or what your take is on that. Do you trade, or do you do both, or do you see one as better than the other? And if you trade if you prioritize trading against Bitcoin, do you sort of consider yourself a Bitcoin maximalist in that sense, as this is what I want to trade against, screw the dollar, I'm trading against Bitcoin? Or are you a maximalist, or I guess maybe pseudo maximalist for any coin in particular? Or what's your take on?
I'll be totally honest with you, man. I don't really care. Whatever makes the most money.
Sure, no.
So when Bitcoin was going crazy last quarter and ICOs were sort of down, I was on BitMEX every day and I was paying someone to write me scripts and algorithms so I can automate BitMEX. Now that ICOs are back up, I'm all in on ICOs. I'm literally like anyone else in this that, isn't a developer and really tied to the Bitcoin brand and developing Bitcoin. We're simply here to make money, man. It doesn't matter which one wins.
Fair enough. I think there's a lot of probably benefit in that, sort of avoiding or sidestepping at least all of the conversation, the political and philosophical and economic conversations about sort of sound money and all that stuff. If you're just in it for the money, that might be sort of a load off your back, just focusing on something else entirely.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people can be a little dishonest in that they want to project this image that Bitcoin's great and Bitcoin's going to be number one. Like, do I believe in the Bitcoin technology? 100%. Do
Sure.
I own a very large amount of Bitcoin? Absolutely. Do I think Core is probably the most intelligent engineering team ever? Yes. But am I going to fool myself into thinking that I should be not agnostic towards whichever coin wins? I mean, no. I mean, I lost a lot of money last year because I was more of a maximalist. I didn't think ETH was serious. I didn't really take Vitalik or consensus very seriously at all. And I realized I made a mistake. So that's why I'm adjusting my investment thesis for this year.
Sure. No, that's totally fair. Live and learn, I guess.
Yep.
Well, hey, thanks, man. This has been a great conversation, jam-packed with a bunch of great answers to all these questions. I really appreciate your time. I've had a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. Again, like I mentioned, I'm not sort of an active trader. I've dabbled in a few things, but this information for me and our listeners has been fantastic. Really appreciate having you on.
Cheers, man. Thanks for having me on, and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. For our listener out there, again, go follow the Don at Donnie Crypto on Twitter, and check out moonshotcrypto.com. He gives you other contact information in his bio on Twitter. Obviously, great idea to follow him if he drops any tips or tricks in his feed, and definitely check out his Moonshot Crypto service. Again, thanks to the Don, and as always, live episodes every Thursday, and more recorded episodes like these with exclusive interviews every Monday or sometimes Tuesdays. Again, thanks for the Don, and until next time, this is You, Me, and BTC with more exclusive interviews and hot takes on everything happening in the Bitcoin and crypto world.
Get ready for Crypto Overload. We're making it easy to get into the game at America's Card Room with your favorite cryptocurrency. We are thrilled to announce that you can deposit and cash out using more than 60 different cryptocurrencies. We are the first poker site to offer this after already accepting Bitcoin from the beginning. Cryptocurrencies are the future. We can predict that playing real money poker will never be easier at americascardroom.com.